Hi. So in 2005, I was working at my dream job. I was a local TV news producer at a media market station in New England. And I had worked so hard for this job, and I loved it so much that I was willing to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning every day to go to work. I would interview local politicians, community leaders, business owners about important issues like, what do you think of property taxes? How is the new highway going to impact your business? So one day, my boss comes to me and says, Rickey, go get this story. Heated car seats can be dangerous. I am very sure she wanted me to come back with a story that looked like this. There is a philosophy in news. If it bleeds, it leads. We wanted to grab eyeballs because the more eyeballs we have, the more expensive advertising we can sell. I spent the next couple of days calling ambulance chaser attorneys asking about exploding car seats. All of them told me that I was reaching a little too hard for a story that wasn't there. And still, my boss wanted to grab attention and wallets. She wasn't particularly concerned with giving people news that could help them. I believe the news should help us. I also believe that the news used to do a lot better job of giving us information that helped us, rather than just trying to make money. And I believe that this is a big reason why we no longer trust the news media. They don't seem to really want to help us. They want to hold our attention to sell ads. The good news is that I think that we can fix this. In a broader sense, I think that we can fix the news and restore the implied contract that it has with the public. A contract is just an agreement between parties. In this case, the public and the news media. Today, I no longer do stories about exploding car seats. I do pledge breaks. I work for an Atlanta NPR affiliate as an on-air broadcaster, and I hope that when I turn on the microphone every afternoon, people trust me because they know that I'm trying to give them stories that add to their lives. Trust is a contract. It's an unspoken agreement that a person or an organization will respect your best interests. We had an unspoken agreement with the news media. It is pretty clear that that contract of trust is broken. Look at these numbers. Less than a quarter of Americans say that they trust the news. Apply that to this room. Everybody from this aisle over would think that the news media was full of it. Now, not trusting the news media may not seem like a big deal in your day-to-day life, but think about all of the decisions that you make every day based on information that you consider trustworthy. You pick out clothes to wear in the morning based on the weather report. That is trust. You decide to buy a food item at the grocery store based on the information on the package. That is trust. When it comes to the news media, that contract of trust helps us decide how we're going to vote, how we want our tax dollars spent, whether or not our family members and friends in the military and thousands of other Americans should go to war. So when we make any decision based on outside information, we need to be able to trust it. We saw an example of this with Hurricanes Harvey and Maria and Irma. In the days leading up to the storms, millions of people needed accurate information that they considered trustworthy so that they could prepare to keep themselves and their loved ones safe. And still, false news was circulating. One email claimed that rainfall and flooding amounts were wrong. Another widely shared Facebook post claimed that the news media was downplaying the size of the storms. With lives at stake, with our finances at stake, arguably with our democracy at stake, why do so few people trust the news? I believe it's because this balance has subtly shifted. The news media doesn't seem to really want to help us. They seem more interested in keeping our attention to sell ads. The economics of this mean that the news media can't really rely anymore on advertisements and revenue and subscriptions. Many outlets are now largely paid with your attention. It's actually called the attention economy. We all know what this looks like. We have all heard of clickbait. We've all clicked on clickbait. These 20 animals' net worth will make you gasp for breath. It's ridiculous. And it works. You click on this, and the sponsor makes money. I clicked on it. Mainstream TV news is not immune from this type of luring of eyeballs. In August 2014, during a news broadcast, the anchors at Fox 5 WNYW New York were cheering as the meteorologist comes out and proceeds to take off his shirt and flex his well-toned muscles. I clicked on that video. But simply giving you information so that you can understand the world better no longer keeps the news media in business. We can fix this. We can restore our contract of trust in the news. It's as simple as supply and demand. We can demand that the news media help us. So how can we do this? I have 5 ideas for you today. Number 1, distinguish between news and journalism. Seek out information sources that take more time to explain things to you. Because when it comes to understanding the world, shorter is not sweeter. In 2012, 80% of local TV news stories were less than a minute. How can you understand anything in 55 seconds? Journalism takes time to explain the whole story with multiple perspectives. News is just new information. When we demand more informative stories, we encourage the news media to supply us with longer, deeper storytelling. Number 2, opt for fact over opinion. Talking heads now dominate homepages and newscasts. As of 5 years ago, commentary and opinion had crept up to 63% of national cable news. Opinionators understand the issues well enough for them to tell you what they think. How can you honestly know what you think without the facts, the context, the reporting? When we demand information over opinion, we push the news media to supply us with journalism over talking heads. Number 3, yes, get out of your echo chamber. Be aware of what people you disagree with are saying, and be genuinely curious why. On social media, go ahead and follow thought leaders, politicians, activists with whom you disagree, and click on their posts. When we demand to understand opposing viewpoints, we motivate the news media to supply us with balanced, objective reporting. Number 4, go global. Consider frequenting international news sources. You will very quickly see that people elsewhere in the world see things so differently than we do here at home. Now, ideas from far away may seem irrelevant, but they give you a very good idea of where we stand in a global conversation. When we demand international perspectives, we embolden the news media to supply us with a broader scope of ideas and perspectives. And number 5, and certainly the simplest, yep, go out and buy one of these. When was the last time any of us paid for our news? Most of us don't. But if we want the news media to supply us with information that helps us, we have got to free them from having to hold our attention with scandal and sensationalism and downright silly stories. We have got to break the news out of the attention economy. 9 out of 10 adults say that they get their news online. Subscribe to an online journalism website. donate to a nonprofit television station, or go out and buy a newspaper. And here's a great way to pay it forward. Consider giving subscriptions to family and friends for holiday and birthday presents. Or donate to your child's school. This is our modern-day example of the power of the purse. When we pay for our news, we are demanding that the news media supply us with journalism over clickbait, analysis over pop-up ads. Now, the news media's got to do their part too, and that means addressing the elephant in the room and the donkey, which is that the news media is politically and socially polarizing right now. I was recently giving a speech about the state of the news media to a group of Roman Catholic priests in Charleston, South Carolina. I was wrapping up my remarks and taking questions, and a man in the back raised his hand and he said, "I was just wondering how many conservatives work in your newsroom?" I told him I don't know the political leanings of my colleagues, but I understood his point. He is among millions of Americans, and many of you may be among them, who don't feel that they're seeing conservative viewpoints adequately represented in the news media. The people who work in the news media meant for all Americans need to reflect all Americans. News executives talk all day long about adding diversity among staff and contributors in terms of things like race and gender and sexual identity. All of that is incredibly vital. How well are newsrooms doing prioritizing diversity of political thought? When you see your political ideas reflected in the news media, you are more likely to trust the news media. So, it's so easy to be angry, even really frustrated. There's other words for it about the news media right now. This isn't the worst it's ever been. Who here has heard of Orson Welles and the War of the Worlds? The worst it has ever been may possibly have been October 30th, 1938. Aliens landed on Grover's Mill, New Jersey, and dispatched to take over the world. Mass hysteria ensued. People thronged police stations demanding to be evacuated. Those who couldn't handle the shock dropped out of a heart attack. Others tried suicide. At least that's what the Post and the Times and other newspapers reported. The truth is that the great American storyteller, Orson Welles, had simply aired a very frightening radio drama. After all, it was almost Halloween. Some people expressed concern, sure, but most understood the disclaimers during War of the Worlds that it was fictional entertainment. And still, the newspapers kept churning out these stories, very likely in an effort to discredit their new rival in the news business, the very new technology of radio. We also live in an era of unprecedented technological upheaval that's transforming the ways in which we communicate. Of course, we're confused about who to trust. What has not changed is the power of the free market. Consumers have incredible influence over the news media. Supply always follows demand. We are the demand. And just like those listeners in 1938 who knew that War of the Worlds was just a good bit of Halloween fun, we are so much smarter than the news media gives us credit for. Let's harness the tried and true forces of the free market to demand that the news media stop reducing the very serious and very complex issues of our day to mindless clickbait, shallow headlines, and partisan sensationalism. We deserve news that helps us make better sense of the world around us. Let's restore our contract of trust in the news media by helping the news media help us. Let's restore our trust in the news. Thank you.